Allahu, Allahu, Allahu.
How can Muslims get connected deeper with the Quran?
That's a good question, because most Muslims don't read Arabic. That's the first thing.
Right.
One time we were sitting with the Hafiz of Quran, whose recitation was beautiful. Beautiful. He was an Indian Hafiz of Quran. Very beautiful recitation and deep, like you could feel it like in your soul. Like he would go deep down inside when he recited. He wasn't superficial, like he was deep, right? And Imam Qasim was doing class, Imam Qasim Ahmed, and he was explaining like Arabic, and he was explaining grammar, and some of the concepts he was explaining were not like advanced concepts. He may have been explaining fa'al maf'ul mansub or something like this. And the Hafiz Abdul Qadir was his name. I'm not sure if he's still with us. If not, if he is, may Allah protect him and keep him safe. If he isn't, may Allah forgive him his sins and bless him with paradise. He would just sit in class and he would say, MashaAllah, MashaAllah, MashaAllah. And then after class, once he told Imam Qasim, I've been reciting the Quran my whole life and I don't understand it. Right? So then I say that to say, if you don't speak Arabic, find a translation that the scholars you trust promote in your language. Right? So like there's like 20 or more different English translations, right? And although many of them may say the exact same thing, how a word is translated in English can change the perception of that ayah in Quran. And so if you are what we used to call the plantation of translation, right? As coming from ancestors who were once slaves, we saw not being able to read Arabic as another form of slavery. So that we were slaves to the person who translated the Quran, where we couldn't have our freedom to engage the Quran ourselves, right? So if you don't read Arabic, then find the best translation in your language and spend some time with the Quran every day. However much you can spend, the more the better, but spend some time with the Quran every day. The second thing I would recommend that you do is you find a teacher who you gel with and learn how to read Arabic, okay? Because it all changes when you read Arabic, right? And even when you read Arabic, you don't think in Arabic. So this is a long journey. It's a long journey for people who think in English, right? So even now, I was leading the prayer just the other day, and I was transposing a ka and a na, and the ummah kept trying to correct me, but my mind, I was trying to, because I was in the trance of reciting, right? And I wasn't fully thinking through the meaning as I was reciting. I was just reciting from memory. And later on, when I went back and I thought about the meaning, I was like, subhanallah, right? Because yukadhibuna, I was saying, instead of yukadhibuka, right? I was like, oh, subhanallah, right? I was like, subhanallah, right? It was right here at Mercy, but they were trying to correct me. So when I had a chance to go back and look at it, and I say, wow, right? Once I had a chance to think about the meaning, right? So as you begin to study the Quran, learn Arabic, begin to engage with the sacred tradition in its own language, your eyes open up, right? Even Taraweeh, right? You can imagine how many people come to Taraweeh, the Quran touches their heart, because that's what the Quran does. The Quran will go past your subconscious mind and touch your heart, right? But who don't know what's being said, right? But when you know what's being said, it's like, MashaAllah, right? Even if you don't know everything that's being said. Sheikh Zahid Abdullah, who's the Sheikh of Quba Mosque, it was this year actually. I was at his mosque on what is not New Year's, but what is called Good Friday in America, right? And Good Friday precedes Easter, right? And so it's Ramadan, it's Taraweeh, and he's reciting all the ayah on Isa alayhi salatu wasalam, right? Now, had I not been able to understand, I would have had no idea that's what he was reciting. But since I could understand, I was like, MashaAllah. And I was like, he's brilliant that he's reciting these ayah on Easter weekend in America. I was like, MashaAllah, right? So like afterwards, I walk up to him, I said, Sheikh, you're brilliant. He was like, what are you talking about? I said, You were reciting all the ayat on Isa on this weekend, on Good Friday and Easter weekend. He was like, is that what this weekend is? And he was saying, see, you all think different, right? So the more you learn the Quran, the more the engagement opens up your soul. And like you'll be in the middle of Taraweeh and the Imam will recite an ayah and like, wow, listen to that, right? So my first advice is just, if you don't read Arabic, just pick up a good translation in your language and engage the Quran. And my second is, find a teacher who you gel with so that you can learn the Quran, so that you can experience the revelation in its revealed language. And it does change how you engage the sacred tradition.
So, Saul, the final question for you is, how can we with QuranWorks benefit the overall ummah? Can you give us some advice, please?
You're young. You are facing some real, just every day you go to school, you're faced with dilemmas that challenge the very essence of your faith as Muslims. And if you take a certain stance, you're going to be ostracized. If you take a different stance, you're going to be disrespectful to your tradition. So, as two young Muslims, you all can help the younger generation better than me, because I was your age 30 years ago. And what we were facing 30 years ago, my parents didn't face. Your father's about my age, and so he was facing what I was facing. His parents didn't face that. And so since we understood what they were going through, we were able to help them. You all are in a unique opportunity to help the generation that's coming with you, that's your age, and tackling those topics that you're not going to hear talked about in the mosque. People don't like to go into those topics. They don't like to tackle those topics, right? But you are living and facing them every day. So there has to be an authentic, reasonable voice out there to where young Muslims like yourself, who are facing these challenges every day, like drug use, like suicide, and all the other things, like emotional health issues. So, well, what if you do have a Muslim that's depressed, a Muslim that's suffering from anxiety, a Muslim that's having suicidal ideations? How do they even get help? Because many of these issues are taboo in the Muslim community. They're still not talked about. And in so many ways, your generation is faced with mental health issues. And I don't know if it's just because we're more aware of them now than we used to be, but mental health issues is a major thing for your generation. And if we as an ummah don't begin to engage those, you're going to have so many young Muslims suffering, and they're not going to be able to get any help with their suffering. So I think you could in everything else you're doing, a way you can be useful for the ummah is to tackle these great challenges that your generation is dealing with and help them find some guidance on those issues.
Jazakallah khair for giving us your valuable time. I hope all of our audience have benefited from this knowledgeable session with Dr. Wazir Ali. So inshallah, please remember to go check out our YouTube channel, QuranWorks, for our newer content. Inshallah, please also do check out our Facebook and Instagram pages. Jazakallah khair. سبحانك اللهم بحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليه. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. والعصر إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر. سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
الله